So hi everyone, welcome to Tony Imperatrice Live Part 1 Rogue Festival and Beyond. I got accepted into the Rogue Festival, and I'm also working on creating some shows with the Fisk Planetarium that can go around to other planetariums around the country. And this is all to take my original experimental music live in front of an audience. Now, my music is created using pipe organ sounds, but those sounds are ultimately augmented by looping and various effects devices. So recording the music is one thing, playing it live is quite another thing. So I wanted to start out by showing you kind of what I mean. Now, this piece is constructed like many of my pieces. There's a building of rhythmic layers, and then I play on top of that. Now, in a live situation, what we would do is we would build those layers up in a looper like this one, and then that's running with that layered effect while I'm playing on top of it. And so let's take a look at what I mean by that. So here we see the first rhythmic pattern coming in. Then we add something to it. And then a third element. Then a fourth element. Creating a nice layered, vibrant rhythmic effect. And then I play on top of it. So in the recording software, it's a simple matter of just playing each of the lines that I'm stacking up separately on a separate channel to get the repetition of the loop. I can do a couple of things. I can just play it through on each of those, and then or I can record part the sequence through and then kind of step and repeat like you would in a word processor. Step and repeat that. You can see a splice right here that puts all that together. Now, live situation, what I do is I tell the looper to record, and then I play that first pattern, and then I tell it to overdub, and I play the second pattern, and I tell it to overdub again, and I play the third pattern, and so forth. Then all of that is in the looper, and then I can play on top of it. In this particular piece, then I pause that set of loops and play the other parts of the piece, and then I recall that whole thing, that whole stack, later on in the music. Now, this particular piece will work just fine with a simple single-channel looper like this one. But most of the music I've created requires something a little more sophisticated than that. And in part 2 of this series, we're going to talk more extensively about what that's all about. Really, what we're looking at is I have to come up with a rig that I can use in a festival environment where it's expected that I roll in, plug in, play, and get the heck out of the way for the next performer. So the concept of this is to have a rig where I can set it up all on a rolling platform, have it all ready to go. When it's my turn, roll it out into the space, do my thing, roll it on back out, and then disassemble it and get on to the next thing. So the first thing I need, of course, is a sound source. I need some kind of organ to work with. Now, in the past, I've done shows specifically at a particular venue that's no longer part of the festival, and it was a real ordeal to get a full-size organ into that venue. This time, I absolutely have to have something that is completely portable, but will do the job. So we've got to have something that's efficient and effective, and that's what we're going to talk about in part 1 here. So back when I first conceived of this idea of doing music this way, where I would use pipe organ tones but augmented by looping and different effects devices, the first thing I thought of was, wow, could I do this with an actual pipe organ? Well, that turned out to not be a successful experiment. I did book some time at a church and set up mics and all of that. I had hoped that I could at least do the recording with an actual pipe organ. I was fairly sure that a pipe organ would not really work for a live performance because the effects and the looping have to be just as loud as the original sound in order to have a saturation effect. And it turned out that even for the recording process, miking up a pipe organ was not a satisfactory result. The problem was that the augmentations not only augmented the beautiful sound of those pipes, it also augmented all the unwanted noise from the internal mechanism of the pipe organ. So it became very clear that my music was going to have to be done on a digital instrument through and through. And thankfully digital instruments have come a long, long way, and you're still hearing the sound of a pipe organ. It's just produced through digital sample playback rather than actually blowing some pipes. So, could I do my music on a conventional digital organ like this one? Well, you bet I could. The trick is to take the audio outputs from the machine and run it through the effects devices and the looper, and there's plenty of room to rig all that up with a foot controller, and I can just go to town. And in fact, when I was doing my live broadcasts, I had set up the organ to do exactly that. I had effects processors, the looper, and I did a lot of my original music that way. But let's look at this thing. This is hardly portable. It's not going to roll in, plug in, play, and get the heck out. This is a very large piece, and I'm very lucky to have it, and I love it, and I've done a bunch of videos with it, and it's a great, wonderful instrument to practice on, but it is not portable. Now, I acquired this instrument through a bit of serendipity. Basically, the situation was that I just had to come and get it. So what I really needed was a tank of gas and some strong people, and some really wonderful people in my life even helped me pay for the gas to get this thing here. So this is a great and wonderful piece, but it's just not portable. So are all organs this big? Is there a conventional organ that would work that is maybe small enough to do the job? Well, let's see. Well, here we have a very different conventional organ setup. This is very, very small compared to the other instrument, but it will do everything that that instrument will do and more. It's newer technology, so it's much lighter, it's much more compact, but it's still full-featured. And yes, I could rig this up with effects processors and looping, and it's small enough that we could take it, set it up on a rolling platform, plug everything in, roll on stage, play the gig, and roll off and get the heck out of the way. The problem is, I don't own this. This is on loan to me from the manufacturer, who wanted me to evaluate it and give a critique about it, so it's only here in the studio temporarily. This would be like the ultimate solution for doing on-the-road stuff. It's small enough and complete enough that I could play just about any gig with it. I could play my original music, I could play the classical repertoire. If an orchestra wanted to book me to play with them as part of the ensemble, like everybody else in the orchestra, I could bring my own instrument. But I think this is a little out of the question because it would be pretty expensive to pick this one up. I don't know the exact price of it, but it's many, many thousands of dollars. And so I just don't think this is in the ballpark. I would have to own it. I can't borrow it to do the gig because to have the foot controls I need to be able to run the looper and the effects devices, would require actual physical modifications to this console. That's out of the question unless I own the thing, and like I say, this is just on loan to me, but it would be a humdinger of a solution. Now, let's go take a look at something that might be just the right thing for what I'm wanting to do at the Rogue Festival and at the planetarium shows and beyond. Now this here is the Roland C200, and this is the actual keyboard I used to record all of my original music. It's obviously very small and compact. It's just a keyboard like you would see in, any of the keyboards you get. The difference is that it is specifically a pipe organ emulator. And it also has additional sounds, orchestral voices, and a couple of different pianos and things like that. Now, this is really too small by itself to be utilized for the music I'm doing. I need foot pedals to do bass notes. Well, there is a division for that, and the pedal board plugs into it. I have a 17-note pedal board and a 25-note pedal board, and I'm currently building a 32-note pedal board that would fit under this machine and do things. Roland does not make this one anymore, but they do make, there's another company that makes something that's almost identical. So I could stack two of these, that way I have more sounds, and I also have that separation where if I have one effects kind of set up on a set of sounds, and then I have a different set of sounds with a slightly different set of effects processes, I can have that going with two keyboards that way. Plug pedal board in and we're off and running. Now the Decibel L3 or the Johannes 1 are the instruments that would be available, that would be the second version of this to stack up as a setup for the Rogue Festival shows. They're not cheap. I might be able to get a deal on the Decibel L3, but that's kind of iffy. There's also another product from Viscount, which is basically just a two-manual organ, all in a keyboard style box like this, and then you plug a pedal board in it and set it on a stand. Oddly enough, the single keyboard Decibel L3 and that two keyboard Viscount instrument, the retail price on them is about the same, and that Viscount instrument would be a more complete solution. It would be very much like the instrument I just showed you in the studio that's on loan to me for evaluation. There's a third way to do this, and that is to use a software program called Hopwerk. Obviously, when we're talking about digital stuff, ultimately we're talking about computers. And there is a software program called Hopwerk, which is a virtual pipe organ emulator that goes on a regular computer. That could be used with a couple of MIDI keyboards in a stack, and that would be a highly portable and very versatile solution. So I have a number of options, and which one I choose kind of depends on how things go. I'm kind of under the gun at this point because I've got booked gigs coming up. First the Rogue Festival, and then other gigs beyond that are under development. So I have to have something I can take on the road with me, and I'm going to have to work out how I'm going to make that happen. Now next time we talk about this, we're going to take a closer look at all of those outbound devices that augment those pipe organ sounds to create those unique rhythmic and lush soundscapes that I do in my original music. So thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you next time for a closer look at other stuff.